Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm talking about episode 23 from season 2, The 5-Foot Shelf, when John Boy has an opportunity to own the Harvard Classics. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe. The 5-Foot Shelf was directed once again by our very own Ralph Waite. Early in the episode, we see Elizabeth wandering along on her own on a little country road, and she feels perfectly safe to approach an unknown stranger. Different era indeed. We learn quite a bit about this stranger without him really saying anything. He's a traveling salesman and clearly down on his luck as we see he's fixing a rather large hole in his shoe. Elizabeth is at Ike's, where she is looking at this beautiful doll that she intends to win by guessing the correct number of beans in the jar. She considers the doll is already hers and is just being kept at Ike's until she can bring it home. She does go home and she asks Daddy or Grandpa to build her a new doll for her bed. I love this gorgeous shot that Ralph set up where Elizabeth is sitting up on the fence with all this gorgeous greenery behind her. Our traveling salesman, Mr. George Reed, shows up at the Walton house. He is having not much luck trying to sell these Harvard classics. Olivia takes pity on him, invites him in for a cup of coffee. While sitting at the kitchen table having his coffee, he talks about what he's trying to sell with these books. John Boy comes down and is immediately just fascinated because he has heard of the Harvard Classics. It is a 5-foot shelf worth of 50 books that just cover all sorts of topics. Olivia gets very interested. Mr. Reed hands one to John Boy, one of these books, a sample, and it's just so beautiful. And Olivia gets caught up in the moment and feels that this is something that would be valuable to the whole family, and particularly John Boy, that he would save money on books at college and all sorts of things, and makes a decision that she is going to do, make a commitment to buy these books, which means a $3 deposit and then some amount of money for who knows how long to finish paying for them. When John is at Ike's, he comes across Horace Brimley, who has some not so kind words to John about sicking a salesman on him. John finds out that he has sold these books to the Walton family. This is a big surprise to John. He goes home and he confronts Olivia, and he is not happy about this commitment she has made. And I love how she doesn't argue back with him. She just says it's very important to her. And he doesn't quite know how to battle that. Then she says she's going to pay for it herself. And John is sort of disarmed by that. And then we have her classic line.
Do you like a cup of coffee, John?
Yes, I would like a cup of coffee.
Mr. Reed goes back to Ike's store and he buys one of these dolls for $2.98. He has a daughter who has a birthday coming up, and he has made the decision that he's going to get this doll for his daughter. Now, it's pretty clear to us as an audience that the money he is using to purchase this doll is from the $3 that Olivia gave him as a down payment on these collection of books. I love the scene where Ike is counting the beans and he has all these little helpers and stuff. We don't quite know what has happened until we see the triumphant return of Elizabeth with Ike, and in her hand is the doll that she has won. John Boy wants to talk with Mr. Reed about all these amazing books because he's reading the one that he gave him as sort of the down payment book. But Mr. Reed doesn't seem to really know much about the books, and finally John Boy pulls out of him that he hasn't actually read the books. For some reason, this makes John Boy very suspicious, and Grandpa comes along and asks him if he has any books on poetry. Mr. Reed pulls one out, and Grandpa is delighted by this book of poetry. Later on, we see him reading from it, and he is chuckling, and Grandma says, "What's so funny?" And he shares a bit about this poem that he's reading, but he says he thinks it's perhaps a little racy for the children. A fun moment where Grandma goes, "Well, let me read that." And she starts looking at it, and then she says, "What does racy mean?" he says it means fast. And she reads through it. She's like, well, I don't see anything here that looks racy or fast. Elizabeth tells the family that Mr. Reed bought one of the dolls for his daughter. Later on, when John Boy is in the bathtub reading, which I think is kind of a fun scene, we see him in the bathtub reading like probably any number of us have done when soaking in a tub. John comes and knocks on the door, and then he talks with him and asks him about this doll. And John Boy says he can't imagine that Mr. Reed would have the money to buy a doll. Mr. Reed had admitted to him that this was his first time out as a salesman, and we have gotten the impression he hasn't been very successful at it. So this raises more questions for both John and John Boy. John and John Boy discover that indeed Mr. Reed does have a doll. He's ready to go confront him because he's pretty sure that the only money Mr. Reed had was the money that Olivia paid him for the down payment. John says, no, let's wait. Let's give him a chance. We need to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I really love that about John Walton, that he was not quick to judge or accuse, that he felt a sense of fair play and that people had a right to defend themselves, that one shouldn't jump to conclusions. So he is going to wait and let Mr. Reed have his say. In the evening after dinner, the family is gathering around the radio to listen to Fibber, Mickey, and Molly. I believe that was something that we listened to on the radio in the homecoming. And these were actual broadcasts of the day. They were not recreated, so they got the rights to use the actual radio programs of the era. There's too much static on the radio and they aren't able to get the show, so the radio's turned off and Grandpa decides to read aloud from the book of poetry that Mr. Reed gave him. Mr. Reed has been invited to sit and listen to the radio. He's very uncomfortable, and during the time that Grandpa is reading, he gets up and leaves. John goes out to confront him and basically discovers that Mr. Reed did indeed take the money and use it to buy the doll. And John basically asks him if he feels that buying something with stolen money is okay. And Mr. Reed feels that having this doll for his daughter, who he doesn't get to be with, who is having a birthday, is more important to him than the fact that he stole money, used money that didn't belong to him. John basically tells him to go. He doesn't insist he take the money. He doesn't insist that he sell the doll and give him the money back. He just says, leave. Grandpa is philosophizing with John Boy about how life's troubles bring out the best in people, which brought up a question, an article I saw recently, and comments that some of you had made about hearing that Will Geer ad-libbed a lot. And in this article, he talks about how he actually ad-libbed 25% of his dialogue. I had disagreed with that somewhat because I know when we got script pages and I learned scenes, the lines that Will said were the lines that were on the page. I think where he did so much ad-libbing was in between, when there were pauses, or certainly at the end of scenes where the scene as scripted was finished, but he would continue to talk and fill in, or if there were points where, say, it exited and they were going into the house or leaving a scene, that Will would just continue to create life in the moment. I also believe that because they had table reads, he very well may have, in those table reads, made suggestions about how to enhance some of what Grandpa was saying and bring in elements that Will was familiar with himself in life because of the very diverse background that he had lived. So I think he did ad-lib a fair bit, but I also know that he did stick to the script when it would have interfered with other people being able to say their dialogue and for the elements of the scene that needed to be said to be heard. Mr. Reed comes back. Olivia berates him about buying a doll with stolen money. Mr. Reed apologizes and says he realizes that it was wrong and that he took the doll back and got his money back from Mr. Godsey, and he is now returning that money to Olivia. They all appreciate Mr. Reed doing the right thing. Olivia looks at John, looks at John Boy, and then says, she would like to replace this order for the 5-foot shelf of books. She has gotten John and John Boy's unspoken agreement that they are fine with this. Elizabeth has been sitting watching some of this exchange while she plays with her doll. Mr. Reed says his goodbyes and heads out of the house. Elizabeth takes an instant and then follows after him, calling, "Mr. Reed, Mr. Reed." As he's walking away, he turns back and we see Elizabeth with her doll. And she's going through this internal debate about giving the doll to Mr. Reed for his daughter. But in the end, she's a little girl and she just can't part with her doll. So she bids him goodbye and he heads off. In the end, the books have arrived and members of the family are all enjoying unpacking these books and holding them and looking at how beautiful they are and what are the contents of them. And we know that many, many hours of enjoyment will follow as they explore the wonderful adventures contained within the covers of these books. That's what I have for you for this segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons about the episode from season 2, The 5-Foot Shelf. I'll be back with more Behind the Scenes of the Waltons and more of your questions in Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.